Good afternoon, everybody. Great to have you on again. And welcome to this afternoon's webinar. More of that in a minute. I've just come off a interesting webinar myself, actually. Something with the international trade groups, the National Retail Federation in the States, which I have to say I wouldn't necessarily suggest you all go on because it's a bit heavy. But anyway, it was quite interesting, and it has got me reflecting on, yet another strange week going on in retail terms. And the fact that, there's been another announcement this week that's perhaps left us perhaps even more confused about what the outcome of everything is as of the 22nd, which is tomorrow, what restrictions are being lifted, what restrictions are still going to be in place. But look, I'm sure it'll all come out in the wash. But coming back to that webinar, one of the things that struck me as it was going through was you could literally copy and paste it and call it Ireland in terms of some of the issues that were being talked of. Shortages of stock, demand-led inflation, lack of people in the workplace, all the things that certainly have been brought to our attention over the last few weeks and months, and it does certainly appeal as though it's very global at the moment. There were a few little positive notes that were mentioned on the webinar that have just come off. Get this, when you think back to where we were in the summer, there have now been 1 billion people have been vaccinated in India today. So they've just passed that milestone of 1 billion people having been vaccinated in India. So, that's a positive story, isn't it? The other positive story is that the US has just gone through what it appears as though we're going through at the moment in terms of this rise in cases, and seem to be coming down the back end of it. So, they're still a little bit concerned about further waves of the virus going through into the winter, but certainly they seem to be coming off the back of something at the moment. So maybe this is short term, and maybe we will start to return to some form of normality. Anyway, let me just introduce our two speakers. I'm not going to talk much about Tommy because we'll come on to him in a few minutes. But before Tommy gives us his few minutes, I'd like to introduce JP from the Me to You gift card company. Me to You, who are our neighbours here in Sandyford, often bump into each other in the car park, JP and myself. And it is that point, isn't it, JP, at the moment, around people thinking around bonuses, people thinking about what can they give their staff as they approach the Christmas peak. And I know you're just going to talk for a few minutes around the benefits of handing your people a gift card for Christmas, and obviously on the other side of this, retailers taking them through the tills, running up to Christmas and beyond. So, JP, over to you.
Thanks a million, Duncan. Yes, it's a hot topic at the moment. Something was in the water on Monday this week because our office has just gone into overdrive with companies wanting to talk about it and finally starting to think about giving gift cards to staff. Because it's something that we thought they just weren't going to get around to doing. So I'm just going to walk you through a couple of things. I'm going to tell you about us for anyone who doesn't know who we are. Me to You gift card, we're an Irish company. We're a guaranteed Irish company. Surprisingly, you're going to learn that we're the only Irish-owned nationwide multi-store card. There isn't another one, despite where they're sold or what's written on the card. We're the only Irish-owned card. We have over 6,000 outlets that accept the card, and lots of places that don't accept other cards, which people want, and we know they want them because they feature in our top accepting retailers, places like Penny's, and that, especially at Christmas, they're very appropriate. I'm going to just talk to you for a second about the small benefit exemption, because there's a couple of rules around it. They were eased last year, but they're back and locked down again this year, so just don't get caught out. It's €500 is the allowance per reward. It is once per year. The first reward uses the tax break. So if you give someone €50, you've lost €450 of a tax break that's available to you. So just be careful around that if you've already rewarded someone. And it's limited to non-cash rewards and gifts, and a gift card is regarded as being non-cash. If you're going to talk to us about doing some business, which we'd love you to, different ways that you can do it with us. You can just contact us and place a corporate order. We'll put it through in the system. You can also use instant activation. Just ask us to send out a couple of cards to you in advance. and you can then go online and switch them on. You can mark down who you gave the card to, why you gave it, and all that. And you can pull down a report as well if you're audited about what you did. And looking to January, we can give you an online reward portal, which will be fully branded up for you. It allows you to drive initiatives throughout the year for engagement and recognition, and maybe, seeing it's hard to get staff, to get CVs in from friends and family of your current employees. Everyone has an electronic account. All rewards are issued electronically, and it allows multiple rewards throughout the year per employee. So you can have lots of different 15, 20, 25 euro rewards going to employees, which is something you can't do without this system. Greatest thing of all, it's revenue approved. So that's something to put in your diaries to do in January, or talk to us in advance, and we'll put that in place. The kind of companies that deal with us, they range from the very biggest employers in the country, like Air and Medtronic, and some of the biggest retailers, as you can see there, Smyth's being the main toy store brand. But we deal with companies of every shape and size. So that's my short little piece. If you want these slides, just contact me, let me know. If you want to have a chat, and I'm here and available. Okay, thanks a million.
Great stuff. Thank you, JP. Always good to have you guys on board. So thanks a million for that. Right, I am in a moment just going to hand over to Tommy, but as we go through, usual rules apply. If you've got any questions, please stick them in the chat box at the bottom of the screen there, and we'll come to them at the end and do a bit of a Q&A if we can. I'm sure you'll be up for that, Tommy, won't you?
100%, yeah.
And if we don't, for whatever reason, get to any questions, we'll copy and paste them, come back to you, and we'll come back to Tommy and get some answers. So look, title of this, I think, was, what was it, Tommy? Christmas with Tommy Smyth. So
something like that, no, yeah.
Doesn't it feel a little bit like Christmas
Jamie
with
Oliver
the
or
Cranks?
something, like, you know?
Yeah, I was more thinking Christmas with the Cranks, Tommy, you know, but I'm sure it's nothing like Cranky in the Smith household at Christmas, is it?
Oh, of course not. Of course
Absolutely.
Not. I laugh, like most of you watch most Christmas specials, especially with cooking and the likes of that. They do seem to be filmed in summertime. So I'm looking out at a lovely autumn afternoon here now. But I think forewarned is forearmed is probably the reason we're doing the likes of this before Halloween even hits now, you know?
Absolutely. Well, listen, floors to you, and I'll come back to you at the end. Thanks, Tommy.
Lovely. Thank you, Duncan. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another one of our webinars. So yeah, Christmas in October, but I suppose, look, what I've tried to put together, as most of the time I like to do in a webinar, is take a theme and try to give you as many, I suppose, an eclectic mix of issues as possible, rather than doing, I sometimes find, a more boring deep dive into one issue. So when it comes to Christmas, this is kind of the eclectic mix of what keeps probably our office and most employment lawyers busy around this time of the year. Okay, so really it's just try to get ahead of some of these things, sow some seeds in your brains now, and like I said, forewarned is forearmed. All right. So okay, look, straight in with maybe the biggie, you know, things like Christmas parties and social events, which may be back on the radar this year. I say maybe, obviously, you know, we're not quite hitting the levels tomorrow in terms of freedoms that we'd hoped. And I know there's, you know, you visit the news sites, there's issues with intensive care admissions, but look, I suppose still predicting, we hope there to be some form of social gatherings, or that we can run social gatherings for our team. And look, the first point there is, you know, if COVID certs are still being checked, what does that mean for unvaccinated people being able to actually get in to attend these events? Clearly nothing's changed from my last webinar in terms of you having an ability to directly ask people, are they vaccinated or not? And in reality, one can say from an employer's point of view, you're running an event, and if someone can't come in or has chosen not to get the vaccine, which is their right, just be conscious that that may lead to an issue in terms of their attendance if, as we progress into the end of the year, you know, certs are still being demanded by hospitality venues. I suppose moving on from that, and you know, you think about Christmas parties, and you think about people arm in arm swaying and singing to various songs, you know, and I suppose obviously if parties are going ahead this year, issues like social distancing and hygiene etiquettes will still be in place in most venues. In all venues you're going to go to. All right. The list of pointers I'm kind of giving now on things like parties and social events, where I'm going to with this, as you'll see on the next slide, is some sort of an email or a memo or something to people in advance of it. That's maybe where I'm coming to with this. And so the little pointers that you may very courteously want to make people aware of in some form of pre-party or pre-event note are things like this. And a little reminder that, look, guys, we're not quite at the level yet where we're going to be in a big circle doing some sort of a dance, that there's going to be social distancing and hygiene etiquettes. And even after maybe a few jars or a few glasses of wine, you're going to have to remember that. That's what, I suppose, COVID specific things this year. Obviously, like every single year, we get calls and you read stories, guys, about, the types of, dignity at work issues where people get quite brave after a bit of booze, and there's rows and there's arguments, there's unwelcome attention, inappropriate physical contact, inappropriate comments. These are the par for the course now that, while no Christmas parties for the last year or so may have put them to the back of our minds, but you have to remember these. I mean, every single year people get fired around Christmas for inappropriate behavior at workplace events. So definitely, whether there was COVID around or not, I'd be having this webinar with you, and the vast majority of these points I'd be saying to you still, okay? So definitely a reminder on, what's acceptable workplace-based behaviors, because a company Christmas party is an extension of the workplace. That's long since established in legal cases. So obviously you're now taking responsibility for a work event where people are boozed up. And if there's inappropriate sexual harassment, it's most certainly front and center your issue to deal with. So a preventative strike in terms of a reminder on behaviors is what we're talking about here. Obviously, any under 18s, guys, you do want to look at things like, I suppose, parental permission, and certainly you want to take care that maybe nobody is sneaking the young lad a cheeky bottle of beer under the counter, or a cheeky bottle of something is being bought for a young girl or a young lad that's coming to the party. I suppose another one is, and I say this, do I say it from personal experience? Possibly, but just from speaking to a lot of you guys as well, as it's fine, especially in retail, being 7-day business, no matter when you have the Christmas party, someone's on duty the next day. So someone has to come into work in the proper order, has to be trusted to attend work the next day, has to turn up in a proper way to do a decent day's work. And obviously, again, you have to be conscious that depending on what time the likes of the Christmas party would finish up on, if people are driving to work the next day, again, you have to be careful of this concept of vicarious liability, where, by you creating an environment where people are going to be drinking late into the night, the responsibility isn't completely abdicated for you, making sure they're okay the next day. Okay, unofficial Christmas parties, obviously, certain groupings of people may go out for a jar themselves, may, book a meal themselves, all right? It doesn't quite have the same front and center if it's not sponsored or paid for or, arranged by you guys, but you still need to kind of address the fact that if you have work colleagues going out, having a few drinks, there could still be rows, there could still be unwelcome contact, and while that party itself may not be your responsibility, the effects of that party in the workplace the next day, the awkwardness, the cold shoulders, the disputes, the rows could well lead into a workplace dispute. Important points as well, guys, is maybe in any kind of pre-party memo, just when is the party over as far as you're concerned? When is there a cutoff point? Because obviously there's the temptation for some people to have a bit of an after party or a bit of a shindig or a trip back to Johnny's house for a few extra cans or a few glasses of wine or something like that. So you just need to be clear as to when as far as you're concerned, there's a close off point. And one again that maybe isn't front and center in people's minds is some sort of, again, a responsibility to make sure people get home okay. I've read stories and I've heard of stories before where there's been, certain people have been sexually assaulted kind of after a Christmas party where there's a lot of drink involved, and on the way home there's been issues like that. Again, if an employer is paid for drink or sponsored drink to get a person in a certain position, you do have an element of responsibility to make sure that people can get home okay from that event. So I think, you know, what I've read up and things to consider is even the venue you choose. Is it near or next to or close to public transport routes? Could you provide in your memo, your pre-party kind of, you know, memo, provide information on nearby links, or provide taxi numbers, or at the venue suggest maybe as the party winds up that kind of that parties taxis could be called now, or could be called to the venue to bring people home safely. And a final point, guys, then is social media, GDPR. Obviously, you know, people will let their hair down, will cut loose, will, you know, pose for photos possibly with colleagues. But again, you just need to be careful that at certain times of the night, if certain photos are taken of people in certain types of positions or compromising positions, you know, we live in a day and age where you probably need to tell people in advance, look, guys, you know, just be careful, whatever we're taking a snap of somebody, putting that up all over Facebook, or putting that up all over Instagram, or whatever other accounts are there, just don't do it, basically. You know, if you don't have permission for people to use people's photograph, I just wouldn't do it. I'm trying not to sound like the Grinch, guys. I'm trying to sound it as logically as possible. But look, where I'm coming from in this is, you know, some of those points, guys, you know, in a very calm or logical email, you know, in advance, it says, look, guys, we're really looking forward to being able to celebrate the last year and a half and celebrate you guys, and sponsor a meal and sponsor a few drinks. But look, humor us on a couple of points we have to make to you in advance. And it's about encouraging fun, but it may be reminding people of certain do's and don'ts and certain responsibilities. Annual leave. So look, I know this is probably both the general point I'd like to make to people this time of the year, as well as the likes of the Christmas thing. But you know, certainly last year was a basket case of a year in terms of annual leave. But that's contaminated this year, I found. Okay, so it's always worthwhile this time of the year doing a little stock take on where people are in terms of annual leave totals, most especially in an industry like retail, when, you know, if it starts to heat up, there may not be many annual leave gaps left on the roster. So when can annual leave be taken between now and the end of the year? Because if you have the likes of December as a black zone where you don't really allow holidays, you're running out of time for people to be able to wash through 2021 holidays, unless you're going to agree to allow people to carry over a certain annual leave into 2022. But again, like, you know, are you still doing that because that's your normal policy anyway, or are you going to allow holidays into 2022 as a, you know, special dispensation because COVID hasn't gone away, and, you know, we'll do it on a once-off? Consider that, guys. Have a think about it. Make a decision on it. Over the Christmas period, do you have any mandatory annual leave days? Generally support offices you guys may have, but again, in the contract of employment or in an employment handbook, do you have that, you know, people have to reserve 2, 3, 4 days of annual leave for mandatory day closure days around Christmas? Have a look at that. Have a look at the way that Christmas falls. I'm going to go into public holidays in a second, but again, figure out how many leave days over this office closure you're going to have Christmas 2021, and let people know maybe in advance. Do you allow anybody take holidays over Christmas? If you do, if you can afford to let 1 or 2 or 3 people go on holidays, perhaps, you know, is it first come, first served? Are people who are due holidays who haven't taken them? Again, thinking about the likes of that now avoids unnecessary strife down the line if it's kind of managed in a more ad hoc way and there's bad feeling because people thought they might be able to get holidays and now they can't. Public holidays, I'm going to discuss them specifically in a second, but the public holidays are Christmas Day, St. Stephen's Day, and New Year's Day. Okay, but where I'm going with my mandatory leave days, generally office, slide leading into this is what may happen in many of your desk diaries. What often happens when they fall on a weekend like that, on a Saturday and a Sunday, is the Monday and the Tuesday, being the 27th and the 28th, are referred to as bank holidays. And they may be bank holidays, but they're not public holidays. So what you can do if you want to is transfer the benefit from the Saturday and the Sunday onto the Monday and the Tuesday, okay? Which would mean that certain office people wouldn't have to take them as annual leave days. Try and stay with me on this now, or if I sound, if I'm complicating it too much, guys, I'll say at the end, please feel free to give us a call or send us an email on it, okay? But again, for people, just be conscious, people who may be off work over Christmas, like offices and stuff like that, look at the 27th and 28th and how they relate to the public holidays, and whether people are going to have to take annual leave to take those days off, or whether it's transferred public holidays entitlement. Okay, so the 26th, 25th, 26th, and the 1st of January, they are the public holidays, full stop. Okay, and any entitlement employees have to a full day or a partial day, it's based on these days, right? That does mean that this year it does fall badly for many store colleagues, maybe especially store colleagues who generally work a Monday to Friday roster, because they may get the likes of Christmas Day or possibly Christmas Day and Stevens's Day off, usually midweek, as well as their weekends off. So again, I remember the last time this happened, there was a bit of consternation with some of the staff because they felt that even though they're normally off Saturday and Sunday, they felt you were going to give them extra days off, kind of in lieu of them kind of the Saturday and Sunday being the public holidays. And if you're not going to do that, guys, just start looking at your roster now and planning that, because what I find, as I'm going to go on to talk about rosters in a second, is look, you know, come the middle of November, Auntie Mary is going to ring and say, we're having a few drinks on the 27th, can you make it? Or the girls or the lads are going to say, will we go watch a match? And people are going to start thinking, oh yeah, definitely, I'll probably get a couple of extra days off, so I'll do that. So I'm trying to say to you, as we speak in late October, getting ahead of this, especially if it's bad news for people around Christmas, just get your heads into your Christmas roster as early as you can and have a look about when will you need people and when will you be able to give people off. All right. And one point to make on that is, merging my last slide and this slide, is Saturday and Sunday, 25th and 26th, are the public holidays. What many offices will do is they will give people paid days off on the 27th and 28th for the public holidays. So they'll transfer the benefit from the 25th and 26th, which will be unpaid days off, weekend anyway. They will give, instead of paying people who are off on the weekend, they will give them paid days off on the Monday and Tuesday. Where you need to be careful is if you're up for doing that for your office, because your support office may be closed anyway, just be careful, because you're doing that for one cluster of your employees, but you're not going to do anything for the shop employees. And again, just think that through, maybe check records as to what you may have done previously when public holidays fell over a weekend, right? And do just, like I'm telling you now, guys, public holidays are going to be an issue this year, and you need to, shop staff will presume that you're going to give them some extra benefit. So if you're not going to do that, get ahead of this. So, okay, give some bonuses. Okay, so obviously, look, JP obviously spoke beforehand on, certainly I found the small exemption is certainly something that people like to do and like to give a gift card. I've availed of the Me2You a couple of times as well myself with our team. First thing I'd say is, in terms of any type of a bonus, right? If you do give something to employees at Christmas, is it a contractual requirement or is it at your discretion? So what you need to ask yourself there is, you know, have you just given it for 5, 6, 7, 8 years in a row, irrespective of, you know, economic circumstances or absolute work performance? Because if you have, you know, it may have moved into this custom and practice contractual entitlement rather than it's more ad hoc. You tend to give it if you've had a profitable year, or you tend to give it if you've exceeded the previous year, or there's no real rhyme nor reason to how or when you give it. Okay, that's the first thing I would say, right? Because if employees have a reasonable expectation for some form of structured Christmas bonus, contractually or historically, and if you're thinking, geez, guys, we've had a bit of a disaster of a year now again, and you know, I don't think we can afford kind of to give anything, geez, definitely start telling that to people as early as possible. Okay, because once you reach the 5th, 6th, 7th of December, it's already spent. People will have an expectation that, oh, look, I can put that couple of £100 on my credit card because I'm getting a double week, or I'm getting an extra voucher or something from the boss down the line. Sure, that will ease it off. So if you're not going to do it, pick your moment, lads, and try to break the news to them as early as possible. Okay. And another little point on the likes of gifts and presents that comes up every single year, guys, is just have a bit of clarity on, you know, like, please God, because of the excellent people you have, they'll receive gifts from customers, suppliers, you know, and generally, you know, the office people will get some stuff, the shop people may get some stuff, all right? Have some sort of a policy, if it's not in your handbook, on to, you know, what happens to those gifts. Do they have to be declared to head office? Do they go into a central kitty and are raffled off? Can whoever gets it keeps it? What if one person gets 25 gifts and the 2 other people who may work just as hard for whatever reason don't get it? What if the manager is given a gift and, you know, it's supposed to be to the team in a store, but the manager just keeps it and puts it in the office and brings it home? Again, some sort of little note, or it could well be in your terms and conditions, but you just want to have some sort of clarity for everybody on, you know, if the likes of that happens, where does it go? Who is it declared to, just from a transparency point of view? Because it can lead to bad feeling and consternation, and even accusations of, well, where did that come from? Did you pay for it? Didn't you pay for it? So again, I go back to my saying, forewarned, forearmed, guys. So have a little think about that. Yeah, Kris Kringle, Secret Santas, pound for pound, this has led to quite a few HR issues, you know, over time. I would say, guys, you know, more especially of late in the last 5 years. I remember being part of this in an office 20 years ago, and you know, some of the presents that were given were pretty close to the edge, but it just maybe wasn't as big a thing for people to take certain insults maybe now as they would. You know, my own pet hates about it is that, look, you know, you're never going to get it. Oh, it's €100 Kris Kringle, so let's go to a brilliant shop and buy a wonderful gift. It tends to be the office Kris Kringle. It's a tenner, right? So people may decide, well, what can I get someone from a tenner? I might get a joke or a gimmicky present instead of something that actually tries to pass off as a genuine gift, all right? And then if you get some sort of a joke or a gimmicky present, you're really increasing the potential of it being inappropriate or being viewed as inappropriate, all right? And again, even if it's given in jest, a line I often find myself saying to you know, dignity at work issues and complaints, it's never how it was meant, it's always how it was received, okay? And also some people may not really naturally be fans of the likes of Kris Kringle. They may not be enthused by it or particularly want to take part in it, but they may feel, you know, intimidated, or they'll be known as the office Grinch if they, you know, and they feel they have to spend a tenner on some fella they don't even know on the other side of the office, don't have a clue what he's into or not, and sure, what's the point of that? Okay, so look, overall, without sounding like the Grinch, you know, I probably would try to avoid it, okay? But if it is proceeding, another aspect of it, which isn't hugely comfortable, is that, you know, if it is this whole concept of Secret Santa, not that most of the time everyone tends to know who's buying for them anyway, it gets out there through the gossip line, but ultimately you don't. So if someone ends up opening up a hugely inappropriate present, they may never actually know who received it. All they've known is that in the office, sitting at their desk working for you guys, someone's handed them this, you know, inappropriate, lewd, sexual innuendo filled gift, and that becomes the issue. So if you are proceeding with it, if you don't kind of feel that, Tommy, don't be a party pooper, we might go ahead and do it. What I would suggest is maybe you'd appoint one person there who maybe would take charge of a draw, so that at least there's some sort of record of it as to who buys for who. Because if it's more public, odds are it'll put more manners on whoever's buying for who. Okay. Alcohol and drug testing. Like, guys, you may feel as I talk through this, I don't like to sit in the fence. I like to try to give an opinion and not kind of have a webinar where you leave and say, meh, you know, he talked about it, but I didn't get much direct advice from it. I like to try to give advice. But the likes of this one, it's very much going to be incident by incident based. Okay, it's quite a difficult topic to navigate. You guys can Google it and you'll see a good half a dozen WRC cases where there's been, you know, serious awards to people against an employer over the concept of, you know, being drunk on the job or being under the influence of drugs on the job. Okay, it has to start with quite a robust, clear, instructive policy that you have in your contracts of employment on your handbook, which sets out very clearly to employees what your alcohol and drug, you know, testing or policy is. And if you don't have that, guys, you're 3-0 down on this one. Okay. What I would say, some of the basics to start off with is if someone does report for work and you feel they're under the influence of something, you know, could well be one of your managers in stores where it starts. You try to get another member of the management team to corroborate this. Always have a witness in terms of not being down to one person's opinion, because whether the person is under the influence of alcohol or drugs, you know, they can take offense and claim discrimination or victimization by being accused of one person. So you try to have a second person to corroborate that there's certain behaviors or certain actions are leading you to believe there may be an issue, and then you refer to your policy and say, so, you know, because we have a suspicion or for a cause, or, you know, we feel we're going to proceed now and ask you maybe to take a test. Okay, and it has to be really through an occupational health support, really. Okay, because obviously, especially if you're quite negative about an employee for what you feel being under the influence of alcohol or drugs, you know, you certainly can't use some sort of uncalibrated, over the counter kind of blow into the bag there, and you're in big trouble because it reads red. It has to be done properly through a blood test, really through a medical support. So look, what you do, guys, is like in the event of that, have your policy is the first big tip on that. And secondly, you try to get advice in real time. The likes of ourselves, your own HR departments, your solicitor, whatever it is, try to get advice in real time, and we plan out a scenario there and then as to how to address the person, deal with it in a competent manner. Okay. Seasonal hires. Okay. Don't forget now, the whole Terms of Employment Act. You have 8 weeks to get your terms and conditions to somebody. That's obviously superseded by the 2019 law. Okay. You have 5 days now to get somebody. Well, I say for requirement for contract. Not necessarily. They have to get a letter containing their basic 5 terms. Okay, but sure, to me, lads, you're just as well give them a contract to read. Why produce a simple letter with 5 terms when you're just going to give them a contract with all of their terms? All right, but remember, you have 5 days to do it. So ideally, you do it in advance of them starting. And remember, if it's seasonal, it's a fixed term contract, start date, end date. Okay, remember the end dates. So if you hire people on the 1st of December until the 15th of January. Put a reminder on your phone straight away, lads, for the 8th of January, week to go, where you can start to talk to these people about kind of finishing up in a week's time or whatever may be happening with them in a week's time if there's an extension. Even though they may be short-term seasonal hires, guys, get your induction training done as normal, your manual handling training, right? It's amazing the percentage of temporary workers like that end up with grievances or issues or sore backs or accidents. Okay, and a lot of employers presume, sure, if they're only with me a couple of weeks, I don't have to tick all of the same boxes. You do. Okay. A reminder that anybody on your stamp 2s, okay, they're allowed to work their 40 hours a week from 15th of December to the 15th of January. Okay. And again, I'm saying the last point because it's a historic thing that happens every year. Okay. If you're taking on 5-10 people for your Christmas cover, okay, you guys may have 2 or 3 ongoing roles afterwards, right? And obviously you're then going to make that call on, the 10th of January. You're going to say, well, we like Betty and we like John, but the rest of 80 can go on away now, all right? Try to have some sort of rationale with your management team that as you're reviewing these, 10 people maybe in a store, just make sure your management team or their line managers or the people who are making a decision on these people, have the same concept as an annual review, same concept as a probation review. There's timekeeping, product knowledge, attitude, willingness to be flexible and help out. But there's a couple of these pointers are kept in mind, and there can be a little bit of a scoring system done that's fair and transparent. If there's any bad feeling about with one or the 2 of the people who aren't kept on when other people are kept on, that you have some sort of logic and reasonable information as to why they were kept on. Because grand, you'll say, but Tommy, they're not with us long enough for unfair dismissal. That's fine, but they're with you long enough for the likes of discrimination claim. So if they say, well, I let the manager know I was gay and I wasn't kept on, or I have a disability so I wasn't kept on, or someone made advances towards me and I rejected them so I wasn't kept on. Again, for you to have some sort of transparent little tick list and scoring list as to why you selected some people to stay on with you and not others, it's always good to have. So roster preparation, yeah, then guys, okay. I mean, look, like I said, in general, this Christmas may be a more socially active Christmas than last year. Hopefully it will be anyway. So again, give early notice to people. Okay, Stephen's Day is a Sunday, guys. So if you do have people who don't regularly work on a Sunday, but they're critical, your management maybe, and they'll have to be in store to set up for things like sales on the Sunday on Stephen's Day, you got to tell them that now. Because if you start telling them that 2 weeks beforehand and just put their name down, you're good luck is all I'll say to you. You'll be, so do start thinking about that. Start talking early on rosters, okay? Even students who are doing exams, try to get as early as possible. Try to get some dates from them as to when they're doing their exams and when they'll be finished and when they'll be available, because it all plugs into you doing a fair roster. Even part-timers who are with you, if there's flexible hours, try to talk to them early about what they're going to commit to you for Christmas. And again, when I say early, lads, in the next couple of weeks, just have it nailed down, because a couple of weeks out, social calendars over Christmas won't be full, so you might get a commitment for people. If you leave it until the middle of December to do it, people will say, oh no, I didn't think I was working and I'm away that day, or I'm doing something that day, or I'm going out that night, or something like that. Okay. And again, maybe make sure everyone's clear around swapping shifts if that's the case. All right. So now the Christmas lists. I suppose I included a final slide really on you know, Happy New Year, everybody. Now you're paying sick pay. Okay. So this starts from next year. So from the 1st of January, you're paying 3 days sick pay to people from day one, no waiting days, and that's going to rise over the next 3 years, then to 2025, being 10 days. Okay. One wall I'm coming up at the moment, okay, where it's going to require a bit of thought, and we're possibly going to have to wait until there's some guidance notes coming out from government on it. Well, there's two points I'd make, which we need clarity on. Number one is, okay, to be fair to employees, it's 70% of a day's pay, and most of your shop teams, you know, maybe on a modest enough wage in the grand scheme of things. So they're at home on day one, they feel sick, you know, they're just calling in sick for a day. Day one sick pay applies to them next year now. They're on 100 quid a day. That's 70 quid sick pay you'd have to give them, but they have to produce a medical cert in order to avail of that. So the cost of a medical cert, you know, if they're sick at home, genuinely unwell with a sore stomach or something like that, they got to go to a doctor to get a medical cert, 50, 60 quid in order to get 70 quid off you. That's one little pinch point. Another little pinch point is if you have an existing sick pay scheme, most employers do have a waiting day. So you don't get sick pay for the first day, maybe the second day, and then after 2 days or after 3 days, sick pay starts. What we have to really get our teeth into in the next while is, how do you merge in this new statutory sick pay with an existing sick pay scheme? Okay. And what happens to your existing sick pay scheme after the 3 days statutory sick pay scheme are used up? Okay. We're coming up against a few walls, and that is just something for you guys to be aware of as well, sharing a problem nearly with you guys if you have some form of internal sick pay scheme, how it merges up with what the new state scheme will be. The minimum wage, guys, is moving to 10.50 from the 1st of January, as was announced in the budget. Look, I think the government have tried to explain that they're trying to offset it with a different making changes to tax credits, but ultimately, you know, your accounts team, your finance team will kind of net that out to you as to what the cost end up may being. But just from the 1st of January, minimum wage is 10.50. Reminder that there is law expected from Leo Varadkar at some stage in Q4 on remote working and flexible working. Or what I've said there is obviously remote working will be in a retail environment. Remote working really isn't something that's too much to worry about for shop workers, but obviously your support office staff is one thing. Flexible working is something I'm still got to be in my bonnet about. Okay, I do feel that kind of it's remote and flexible working legislation that's coming in, and everyone's focusing on the remote aspect of it. I do get the feeling that employers are going to be under more pressure to find accommodations to people, e.g. people coming back after sick leave, mothers coming back after maternity leave. They're going to have to find ways to actually deliver reasonable requests for changes to the roster for certain times of the day to suit childcare for mothers and fathers, for certain shifts and security of shifts and set shifts to enable people book with confidence in creches, because creches generally don't allow kind of flexible days, right? So again, flexible working legislation, we keep an eye out for it in Q4 as it comes in. And finally, just a reminder on your right to disconnect policy. I know it's a couple of months old now since the code of practice came in, but I'd hope you're all taking some heed of it, okay? And again, people like your shop managers, your store managers, that they're not receiving calls on their day off to wonder where's that dress left for Mrs. O'Malley, or the electricians calling in, where are the keys for the power box. Again, you try to get ahead of these guys and avoid the likes of that happening. Okay, find a different system, find a handover diary, some sort of reminders where people when they're off, they're off. And again, for your office teams, simple things like provide them with a work laptop, provide them with a work phone, so that they can mute emails, they can mute work-related messages and emails on there when they're off duty or in the evening, or certainly put some sort of a disclaimer or a policy out there that, look, guys, just because certain members of management may work on social hours, it doesn't mean you guys all have to. So I would hope that's coming along nicely and turning around in your brains a right to disconnect policy. So that's me for now. I hope, again, powered through it, but I hope you found it of interest. And look, if I touched on anything there that you guys want to delve a bit deeper into, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Look, you all have a couple of hours complimentary or sponsored by REI on your behalf with us. So don't hesitate to send us an email or give us a call.
Great stuff. Listen, thanks, Tommy. So I guess what you're saying, to paraphrase the Taoiseach, is that what goes on in the Christmas party can still go on in the Christmas party. Is that right?
Yeah, what goes on the Christmas party can still go on in the Christmas party, but like every Christmas party, the employer can't wash their hands of it.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Listen, I know there's a few questions that came up. And is JP, you still there? Are you? Can you maybe just turn your screen on there if you're around? And because I've got one coming up for you shortly. But I'm just going to spin through a couple of these. I know that there was one I know that Brian just put up there around templates for policy documents. I know he was thinking of the flexible working one, I think, but is there, have you got templates, Tommy? And are those things that you could, easily just send on a basic template of some of these policies if people asked you?
Yeah, we can do something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So just make contact with you is the message. Yeah.
Depending on the template and depending what it's for, things like a flexible working and stuff like that. I'm not going to do it until the legislation comes out. We see the small print of it. Okay.
Right.
Things like right to disconnect. Yeah, I think we've written an article. We might have done an article in the Retail Times in it, but yeah, we can send out a few reminders on that of post-webinar issues. We can do something, maybe the next member update or something. I'll talk with Siobhan on that. Yeah.
Okay. Great stuff. The one came here from Jackie Murphy right at the very beginning, and I think participants to a Christmas party not be told in advance. So this was all around, I think your point was, yes, make sure these things are notified to people in advance of something happening, not afterwards. Yeah.
So look, I'm trying to obviously throw a bit of humanity onto a communication. Don't just say, hey, you guys at the Christmas party, don't do A, B, C, D, and E, right? You obviously soften it and say, look, guys, we're really looking forward to having Christmas party. It'd be great to get back. And look, blame me if you want to. Say, HR has to have, dipped its oar in here and just a few friendly reminders. That's the logic, all right? That it's about responsible fun. But at the same time, there's a huge legal reason for sending that. It doesn't mean you've completely washed your hands from, Jimmy fawning all over Mary at the park. Doesn't mean that doesn't have consequences for Jimmy. It just means that you've actually been very clear to all people in advance. I mean that there things like your bullying and harassment policy will apply to behaviours at the Christmas party.
Yeah. So you're covering yourself as much as possible.
Absolutely. But you're also trying to prevent. I know, if someone's going to have one too many and behave a certain way, they may do it anyway. But the aim is by sending this, you're just doing a friendly reminder in a couple of days build up that may just, remind people that we're not completely cutting loose either here.
Yeah. Okay. JP, this might be yours. I'm not sure whether it's yours or whether it's Tommy's actually, but are rewards allowable and not included in the €500 voucher?
If you've given any rewards during the year, that's a physical item or a cash reward, it uses the exemption. That's it. And the voucher is then not available. Tax-free anyway. And there's a huge amount of companies now who give rewards through the year because they started it last year and they just pay the income tax and gross it up in payroll. Right.
Okay. So your message here, but clear message as far as me to you is concerned, is there's €500 here. We have had a reward during the course of the year. They've got up to €500. Come to you, get a gift card, reward them that way. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Okay.
Only too happy to help.
Absolutely. Yeah. From Vanessa here, Tommy, are public holiday not the 25th and 26th being a 7-day business? It's back to this issue again, isn't it, of the clarity around these things falling at the weekend?
Yeah. And look, again, guys, sometimes in 3 minutes in a webinar, like what I'm about to say may even sound even more confusing. Give us a call and we'll try and explain it to you as best as possible, okay? But the public holidays are the 25th and 26th of December and the 1st of January. So that they are the public holidays, okay? Fact, law, okay? How an employer satisfies an employee's entitlement, there are certain options. So what you can do is you can work somebody Monday to Friday up to the 24th. They get paid for those 5 days. You pay them for the Saturday, pay them for the Sunday, even though they're off at home having turkey, right? That's you satisfying the public holiday entitlement. And then Monday, the 27th is a normal working day. You've already satisfied the public holidays. Or the 25th and 26th can be unpaid, but then you still owe people those 2 paid days, and you give them paid days off on the Monday and Tuesday instead. That happens sometimes again around Paddy's. If Paddy's ever falls on a weekend, it's, everyone gets a bank holiday Monday off, let's say, for Paddy's. Okay, so it's the same concept. So, but it's a bank holiday, the Monday. It's never the public holiday. The 17th of March is the public holiday. What most offices do, what most businesses do, is instead of paying somebody for a weekend day and satisfying it, they transfer the benefit onto maybe the next available non-weekend day. Okay. So, and for some people, it won't be a full day. So again, some people for the 25th, because for part-timers, it's based on their hours in the build-up to it. So again, somebody, because of a certain part-time roster they worked, for the 25th of December, maybe due 3.9 hours entitlement for that public holiday. Okay, so again, they're sitting at home on the 25th of December, but their employer is paying them 3.9 hours in that day, even if they don't work it.
Yeah. Sounds like a complex place.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to get some calls on this one.
Yeah, 100%. Look, we do every year anyway, but especially when the calculation of the public holiday entitlements is one thing I'm floating guys to get ahead of. The second thing though is definitely with, I think especially some of your senior staff, because a lot of people who've been served their time through a shop, they may have a Monday to Friday roster. It's a horrendous Christmas for them. Okay, because usually they'll have a Saturday and Sunday off, and they might have a Christmas day and a Tuesday off as well, or a Wednesday. This year, right, on their Saturday and Sunday off, it's Christmas Day, and you may even want them in on the Sunday, which isn't a working day for them, to work on St. Stephen's Day. Okay, and I found that if you presume that they get this and they're going to know this, and you wait until the middle of December to break it to them, all hell will break loose. So get ahead of it now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Is this the busiest time of the year coming up to Christmas? Is your busiest time, Tommy? Just as a quick aside.
The build up to Christmas, yeah, but then you hit Christmas week and it tends to go quieter because people can catch somebody robbing from the till Christmas week and they'll say, "Oh God, I'll deal with it later." We're just, because obviously you're selling, please God, and it's busy and you don't have the time to think about kind of HR stuff. So it reaches that tipping point where kind of once you're in the absolute eye of the storm, it does tend to drop off a little bit.
Yeah. All has raised a question here around the Stamp 2 staff, which is, I know you came to this, didn't you? I think you maybe just remind us in terms of the hours that they can, or the time when the Staff 2
15th of December to the 15th of January is when Stamp 2 can go back. They can go from 20 to 40 hours.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Okay. This is a good one from Vanessa here, right? How are other retailers managing when alarm call outs are necessary? So what do you give? I mean, presumably this is throughout the year, isn't it, really? But particularly Christmas. So what are other people doing? What's the sort of, does this come up much with you?
Not really, not hugely. Okay. I mean, it comes up in the context that obviously there's a lot of, in certain areas where there might be, social disturbances regularly and the alarm goes off regularly. Obviously, if it's one Muggins is the only person who has the phone and gets the calls all the time, yes, that can lead to a grievance or an issue. I suppose ideally you try to have some sort of, shift pattern, or that, certain people are on call for this alarm at a certain time, but there's an ability for it to be passed off to somebody else and somebody else. And you probably have some sort of arrangement where if there is a call out, there's some sort of reward or pay for them at a certain double time, maybe if there is ever a call out, I mean, I understand that may be asked in the context of pay, but it may also be context of right to disconnect. So what I'm getting at is, ideally you don't have just one person who works shift in the shop and then is simply on call all the time whenever an alarm may go off. I wouldn't say it's not a huge issue if it goes off once a year or less, but obviously if something in Dublin City, it's next to a couple of late pubs that close and regularly there can be alarm call outs, it's something you have to look at. You try to find, try to deflect it away from it being one person all the time.
Yeah, no, got you. And I know you raised this around, your slide around remote working and flexible working. Yeah, and clearly remote working in retail terms is more difficult. And there seems to be quite a divide emerging here between those people that work in retail in office settings and those that work in retail in on the shop floor settings, if you like. And the things are probably becoming quite merged now as well in terms of online shopping and all of that, distribution and logistics and so forth. But but in terms of, you mentioned there about flexible working. So can you give us a bit of an idea of what you mean by flexible working? What's a good flexible working arrangement in your mind?
Look, the vast majority of people who work with me, who need me, right, are, you know, the smaller REI members, pound for pound, all right? And I know they have, either they do the rosters or they have a small management team to do the rosters. You know, they live and they need a level of flexibility there. They need a level of cover to give everybody a certain amount of, you know, midweek days on, midweek days off. Okay. But then let's say you have a situation where, and I'm going to use a mother or a father here. Okay. 1 or 2 kids are now going to national school, or there's, you know, baby and there's child minding, right? Obviously, you know, if an employer can show a level of flexibility, it may lead to a situation where one or other of the parents, and to be honest, usually a mother, steps out of a workforce maybe. Okay, and so they're lost then from the workforce, and it's harder for them to seamlessly in a couple of years later rejoin and continue their career where they were. So I think that's in a very simplistic form, kind of saying, well, right, what the government's aim by bringing in the likes of a demand on employer for flexible working is, you know, if you get a situation where in a store where there's a flexible workplace, someone says, look, I'm coming back from maternity leave, or I've been out sick now and I still have a sore back or something, all I can do is 3 days. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Employer is going to say, oh, maybe I could do 3 days, but I'm not sure about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because that means that the rest of the staff have to do a higher percentage of weekend days or whatever it may be. But the employee will say, well, the creche or any childminder I go to, they won't work of me ringing them on a Friday saying next week I need Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, because they will say, that creche will say, well, we need to plan our rosters too. So you need to come back with a set day. And that's the conundrum. Okay. And at the moment, employers, you know, our clients are kind of saying, well, look, you know, really the need for us to have flexibility kind of trump, we'd like to work with you, we want to work with you. 3 days might be the issue, but set hours, or again, maybe someone says, no, I can only work the 8 to 3 shift, so I can pick up from, you know, I can do a swap. My husband and my wife work shift work, so I need to do this type of shift pattern, so I can fit in with that. Employers kind of are tempted to say, oh God, if you ask for it, everyone's going to ask for it, you know, and they tend to shy away from it. That's probably going to put more pressure on this new legislation coming in, is really going to put more under pressure on employers to say yes to far more of this and offer solutions rather than kind of abdicating it and saying, no, sorry, we just can't deliver it.
Yeah. Interesting times to come, I think, Tommy, isn't there?
Yeah.
Tommy, JP, I think we're coming to an end. There's no more questions that have come through. So can I just thank you both? I hope that, JP, there'll be a few queries coming your way for me to you, gift card, Christmas. Let's hope that they've had sort of 77 people on here today. So that's, you know, maybe you'll get 60 of them at least coming back to you. That'll be great. And Tommy, as always, it's been brilliant. Thank you very much. Incredibly informative from both of you, particularly from you, Tommy. And dare I say it, could I wish you a happy Christmas on this one? And that it's not Christmas with the cranks in your house.
Very good.
Thanks a million, guys. And
thanks, guys. Thanks,
thanks everybody else.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.